So with that being said, we're going to talk about specifically the problems at the Capitol. I mean, it has to be addressed only because, for all these other protests, oh, there was so much security. I mean, and I'm not even talking about, calling for the National Guard. I mean, they just called in from other counties and districts and they got more backup. That was it, without calling military force or semi-military force in the National Guard. But for this, they didn't even do that. It was just like the regular staff. I mean, like, okay, so with that being said, let's see how the people think. Alma?
You know what I thought about? I thought about the same thing I just mentioned about us versus them. It's like us, the minorities, the people of color are the ones that loot, that that do all the bad things when we're protesting. But the whites, how dare they need security? They're just protesting. So it is again back to that double standard. But I also think, and I agree with Tavares, that there was some type of law enforcement backing them up, because there was just a lot of, it can be a coincidence that they knew exactly where they were going. They knew exactly. I saw a video myself where they removed the barriers. I don't know if any of you saw it, but they removed the barriers and basically kind of, come on in, kind of like Tavares said about McDonald's. Come on in. Welcome to McDonald's. What can we get you? Yes, I do believe that, again, that's the double standards, because if it was black and brown people, standing there, they would be scared. I mean, my friend, she always says that, they're always scared of the other. So, but there was no fear for these individuals that obviously caused a lot more damage than what was done for the Black Lives Matter, or for us expressing our disdain with this immigration policy of separating families. I mean, that's horrible. But these protests were meant to be peaceful and bring awareness. This was just not. This was totally a violent situation where they wanted to make sure that government knew that if they didn't get their way, they would forcefully get it. So that there's two different things there. And I do think that the security had something to do with it. I also saw postings about on Facebook that people were taking selfies, and that, police members were engaging with the rioters. So unfortunately, and we know this, again, back to systemic racism, our police department might have some of those individuals that voted for Trump who are diehard. I'm not saying all police, because I'm sure that there's police members that are, not associated with that. But I'm saying there's neighbors who we don't know who might be extremists. And, it is one of those things where, if you take it back to fascism, this is the worst form of fascist that we have seen in a long time. And if you think one more thing, the way that the United States looks worldwide, that's even worse right now. The world is laughing at us. They were laughing at us before, but now it's not even a laughter. It's more of a wow. Yes.
Right. And it's funny. It's funny that you say that because it almost seems like, in those old cheesy movies where like you have like the dork who isn't all that popular and the pretty girl, and then you have the jock, and then all of a sudden, the jock and the pretty girl are always together, and the dork wishes he can get with her, but then he's always terrorized by the bully who is. In this situation, I swear, at least to me, I swear we feel like the jock. America was the jock, and now at the end, at the end of those movies, what happens? He ends up getting laughed at. Everybody's laughing at him. They're like, "Oh, okay, you were wrong. Ha ha. That you're the butt of the joke," and that's how I feel that we are right now. Because with the way that this has played out, how could we ever chastise another nation without getting some throwback for what we allowed with this clown? And I don't mean to say clown, but I just want to let me back up with this past president. I'll put it that way. I mean, but really though, I mean, because it's bigger than one person. You know what I mean? That's why the office is so coveted, because it's bigger than one person. Nobody who's ever sat in that seat, I think, thought that it's all about me totally. You know, they might have had some ambitions on the side, but they knew they had a job to do. And this time it was like, I don't even care if I got a job to do. It was like, you know, how can this benefit me? But that's my view. But Tavares, how do you feel about this?
A couple things is I like to speak on is the fact that I think Trump is he's not. I think he's a clown, but I think he's not just any clown. I think he's a billionaire who's connected with the right important billionaires in the United States. And as I said before, to have that kind of power where, you know, the officers were taking pictures. So we're not talking about these people saying, you know, you guys got to go ahead because you're followers or Magna supporters. We're talking about the police officers who were, if you know, and I've looked at it a couple times. When you look at the video, there's no angry faces. There are no angry cops. There are no cops who's got guns out. There's no batons. There's no tasers. And the worst of it all is they're taking pictures. So
wait, we did see one baton, but that brother was running, right?
well, yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, he was using that as a to balance himself to get up
He
the
was
stairs.
running up the stairs. He was getting out of Dodge.
Yeah. But on another note, we got to start looking at, you know, we get upset and we give our opinions and our ideals and a lot of our anger issues to conversations to these people, but we really got to look at why. Well, that's the question is why. You know, why would you do this? Why is it allowed? So, you know, this is a COVID-19 season. So if you really look at what's really going on, we're in a situation to where we the people, we have to act. And the only way we can act is to unify. And the reason why they're so cocky and they're a small percentage of people, because it's not like they're the majority. They just have the majority power. But the reason why they're like this because they have manipulated and I guess you could say hypnotized us with all this technology. You know what I mean? For us to, you know, be put off or look away from what's really going on. And then when something really happens, the most that we do, it's like that game Peekaboo. If you put your hands over your eyes and then when you open it up, it's like you're surprised. That's what's been going on. They put stuff over our eyes to make us not see. And then when they open it, then it's like everybody's like, oh, look what they did at the Capitol. No, look what they did at 9/11. No, look what they did at, you know, with, you know, the victims of all innocent lives from Black Lives Matter. You know, look at what they did with the immigrants who weren't even immigrants. You know what I mean? Look how they treated all other people, as Alma said. And on the other tip, we're others. Right. And until we get back, even ourselves, we don't have to depend or wait on the I don't want to say white people because it's not all white people, but we don't I don't want to wait on a certain class of people for us to recognize that we got to get back to looking at each other as humans and stop putting the title of black, white. When I look at, you know, whoever I'm looking at, the first thing I'm gonna look at is they're human. Now, after that, how they treat me and all of that, that's what gets them the title of whatever they are. But as far as unifying and coming together, and just like us four people can sit here and listen to one another without all this, you know, yelling and back and forth, you know, you got to go back to the basics. Humans respect humans, and they know that they're equal. That's the number one thing that we have to go back, and that's the number one thing that they took away from us. They labeled us.
You know what? No. I was just going to agree. You are so right. Because when you think about it, like if you're a parent at the playground and the playground is crowded with all kind of parents and a child gets hurt, nobody stops to say like, wait, what color is that child before they help the child?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's what I think that you're talking about, right? That's
And,
what
and speaking of children, that's the second part of what I wanted to say is, and you made up. That's pretty much what I was going to say is if we don't look at each other like children do, children go to the playground, and unless they're taught a certain way, they'll play with any kid. You know what I mean? They just want to have fun and play. So, it's obvious that that's taught. But like I said, with all the technology and this new wave, social media, where everybody is looking to be liked, how many likes did I get and all this, it is so hard to pull a child away or even an adult away from what's going on to really care about what's really happening. And until something really happens to where it directly affects them, which then by then it'll be too late, then we're going to be set aside, you know what I'm saying, for a moment. And I'm going to end this with, this statement with this is we have to, a lot of people ask that question, what can I do? What can one person do? How do we do this? How can we? And to be honest, it's not that hard. If you are working or whoever you allow yourself to be around socially, spread and share what enlighten them. Okay. You know what I mean? With what's going on, you know what I mean? And that's another reason why I appreciate being on here, because you're allowing us to, enlighten one another. And this is how humans form that relationship that God wants us to have. You know what I mean? By understanding one another.
I want you to keep that. I want you to keep that because we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back exactly to that point in a minute. Ms. Flores, your thoughts on this? The Capitol security or lack thereof?
I feel like the two other panelists, I think, addressed the security issue. This was, I think, the most visible we saw in speaking of social media, what people have access to, seeing images over and over again of how easy it was, how police was just letting people go by, etc. My thoughts, I think, are like everyone else here around not how could this happen, but more of like how disgusting for this to happen, actually. How it's like a continued slap in the face of what we don't have, but what a few do have. And that access, that power, that privilege was brought up before. And I think a little further back, it might lead into kind of the next phase we're looking at, what Tavares was talking about, is like, what do we do after this? But even then, it's like, why, right? Like, what is really the deeper why? And I think back of not only just the lack of seeing each other as humans, but also the lack of education, formal and informal. That when you learn about the other, when you learn about other people's histories, when you just have basic conversations, then you start to open up and start to understand that you are a lot more alike than you are different. And I think that the fact that there actually are, it was brought up before, the systemic system that leads for these divisions to take place. And one of them is the system that we're on right now, utilizing technology, which of course we've had to use 3 times over in 2020, because at least in California, schools were closed down and kids were like, go to the screen, go to the screen. This is how we're educating you, screen time. And then when you're not on the screen, practice on the screen. That's all it is technology. I recently saw a documentary called The Social Dilemma, I believe, and talked about how the algorithms are set up for us to be addicted and not move from scrolling and one site to another site, and that the information that is provided to us is so detailed detail that depending on where you live, what gender you are, how you shop, whatever it is what you're going to receive. And sometimes I have people in conversation where they say, but how can they be so dumb? How could they not understand that this is wrong for them, or this is going against actually what they believe in? For example, not addressing that it isn't just white, for example, the Latinos for Trump, and there's quite a number of them, particularly maybe Cuban and Venezuelan, but regardless, people say, how can Latinos be for Trump? And even part of it is like, where are you getting your information? We even have to think further deeply of how the information is provided to them and what they have access to. And I think a part of that why is what we have access to. And so that's a long about way of like saying, how do I feel about the security? The security sucked. I think we all know that. The security didn't do their job. Why didn't they do their job? I think is really the deeper question. And I think a lot of us, I think that's the deeper issue right there.